Welcome to YinzYap's 2016 edition of Pirates Picks. I'm Dakota. Joining me is Mitch, and this is, the fourth year we've done this annual podcast?
I believe, fourth year.
And last year, we both we'll get into the records we predicted, and we'll talk about where we were wrong, but Mitch, is this the defining image of last season, what we're looking at right now?
All frustration being shown for a 98-win season crumbling to the ground in one sad, unforgettable night.
And I think the image, maybe not of the whole season, but at least of that night, is it not of Tony Watson hitting Jake Arrieta in the tush?
The tush, but it shows the frustration that occurred from the Pirates side, winning 98 games, not getting the right to a playoff series, and season all ending in one night.
And the Cubs are just thugs, and we'll get into that. Here's our 2015 final record for the Pirates, 98-64. Fair to say, neither of us predicted records as high as that. And it was, in a way, a successful season because of how high that number is, but you know that I'll argue it was unsuccessful because of how early we departed from the season.
It was a very, how do I say this? It was deceiving to what actually happened
with the win
for the Pirates.
Yeah, definitely. Here are the final standings. We'll take a look at what actually happened, but perhaps more interestingly, what we predicted. First off, I want to say that in 2013, 94-68. Then we had, in 2014, a decline to 88-74. And what actually happened, well, the Pirates, 98-64, as we have talked about the win total. Very impressive, but not enough to catch the Cardinals.
No, not quite. They got us every year. I think in 2013 they got us by 2. Last year they got us by, in 2014 I should say, they got us by 2. And in 2015 they got us by exactly 2. And it's just a revolving door at this point with the Cardinals.
The real stunner that I want to mention on this screen, you see the Cubs one win behind the Pirates at 97-65. Mitch, you put them behind the Milwaukee Brewers with an under 500 record. Anything you'd like to say about that prediction? And to be fair, first off, you were arguing I too had them under 500. I did not, 82-80. But in fairness, we both predicted in these chairs last year that the Cubs would be vastly overrated.
We were wrong.
However, everyone predicted them to win the World Series last year, too. A lot of people did. And they didn't. And they're doing it again this year. And spoiler alert, we think they're not going to do it again.
No, they're not going to do it again.
What?
They are, to a point, overrated. They have that's what happens when you have absolutely unlimited capital. You can just spend and spend and spend, which they have done this offseason. Gone out and gotten any type of thing that would even alert to weakness on their roster. It's pretty incredible, actually.
We'll move on now to not 2016 season recap, but the 2015 season recap. And you see, what's interesting to me about this from Baseball Reference, and the length of the line indicates how bad the loss was or how great the win was. At the beginning there, everyone talks about how poorly we perform in April. In 10 seconds, Mitch, looking at that picture, do the Pirates truly perform bad at the beginning of the season?
I believe they do. They do. And usually, from what I've heard and what I've seen, it seems as though the Pirates play their best baseball in June and July, typically. But when you look at the Pirates need to at least get off to a start. The last 2 seasons have featured starts that have seen us at under 500 all the way up until mid-May, late May, sometimes early June. That's a serious, serious problem for a potential World Series contender. We need to hang around 500, and when I mean hang around, a couple games over at least.
Yes.
You need to split the difference and stay alive.
Moving on with our 2015 season recap. I also want to say, before we get too deep into this, we are going to keep this under an hour this year. I think last year we pushed 2.5 hours.
It'll never happen.
We're not doing it. We're timing it. We got a timer on the screen. Taking a look at 2015 season recap, position by position, Francisco Cervelli, we both predicted, I think, that he was going to be plagued by injuries. He was not, to the surprise of many. his stats are up there. A 295 batting average, very impressive. Could you ask any more from Francisco Cervelli?
No, not at all, especially when he was forced to handle the daunting task of replacing one of the greatest catchers of the era, Russell Martin.
Then we've got Pedro Alvarez, and this is an offensive. We don't even see the error number up there. We'll talk about that a little later, but a 27 home run year. We'll talk about replacing him. We're just quickly providing you the stats here. Jordy Mercer, would you consider it a bad year for Jordy, even though he hit 1/100th of a point better than Pedro? That's a low bar, however. He was injured, too.
Difference between Mercer and Pedro is Mercer is one of, if not the most productive and valuable defenders on the Pirates.
Absolutely.
And
if you're talking about offense, the difference there is 24 home run difference.
No, I think that average might tick up a little this year, more or less to the 250 range. But the 250 range is fine when you're such a solid defensive player.
Jung Ho Kang's rookie season, very successful. Unfortunately, cut short by a dirty, filthy slide that we will talk about later, and the rule change that is being implemented because of that in another play in the postseason. But Mitch, a 467 plate appearance year. He hit 287 and 15 home runs. Very, very good year, and it proved that Neil Huntington is a genius again.
It did. He knew what he was looking for when he went and got Jung Ho from South Korea, and it completely worked out. I give the man credit.
And we're going to talk about later in this podcast, Gregory Polanco, how he needs to step up. 256 batting average last year. Not too bad, but the problem is a lot of swings and misses on first pitches. We'll talk about that. And then also only 9 home runs. We need to step up, do we not?
We do. And I think that'll come with experience, hopefully.
Talking about pitching, we lost some, and we're getting a lot back. Who we keep is Garrett Cole. We actually do need to talk about Garrett now because I do not know that he has his own slide later. A 2.60 ERA. Was one of the best pitchers going into the All-Star break, and I remember our very intense arguments right before the All-Star break convincing people from other cities that Garrett Cole should start for the National League in the All-Star game. He did not.
He came very close to it, but he did not. And who ended up getting the start? Greinke.
It was Greinke, yes.
Greinke ultimately.
202 strikeouts. Just a tick over 200. Does he cross 250 this year?
Cole?
Yeah.
No.
Jeff Locke, at 4.49 ERA, we're going to talk about keeping that, for a lot of pitchers, keeping the ERA under 4.50. He did that. It was a bad year because it was inconsistent. He pitched some games where he looked like a Cy Young contender and others where he looked like a Double-A player. We'll talk about Jeff. A.J. Burnett is gone. Mitch, one of your favorite players. He was absolutely incredible in 164 even innings of work. One of the more awesome moments in PNC Park history is that bat signal projected across the river. They're going to miss him, but they also didn't think that he was going to get anywhere near that many wins. Or that low of an ERA.
Especially at that age, 38 years old.
Exactly.
You look at the ages up there, 24, 31, 27, 38. And the man came out and performed till his very last pitch.
Charlie Morton, we'll give him 10 seconds of recognition here. Neil Huntington, how did he possibly get rid of that salary? It's incredible. He was horrid, 4.81 ERA. And it's unfair to say that he was horrid because that number inflated by that, 10 runs in the first inning or something early in the season.
And honestly, if it wasn't for that.
If it was not for Charlie Morton in the beginning of the season where he won, if I'm remembering, 6 straight with 7 scoreless, something like that. Amazing. He helped win and keep the Pirates ahead of the Cubs, absolutely. And lastly, Jay Happ up there. We're going to talk about his departure. Yeah, and look at that ERA, 1.85. He was incredible. He's gone.
He is gone.
Concluding our 2015 season recap, 98-64 was your record. Mitch predicted 92-70, as did I. That brings us both in with an accuracy of predicting 93.87%. Not bad, but also, in terms of a baseball season, 6 wins is pretty big to be off by. We'll see if we get closer this year. 2016, not 2015, 2016 over-under is 86.5. Is it over or under that? We will find out as we predict these games. Starting right now with opening day coming up. We also want to point out our records as we go through this will be in those boxes, those yellow boxes on the left side that you just saw wiggle. The Cardinals, last season, the Pirates were 9-10 against them. 79 runs scored against the Cardinals, and the Cardinals scored 76 runs against us. So even though we won that differential, the Pirates lost the season record against the Cardinals. And Mitch, they lost that season record against every team in the National League Central Division.
Every team in the National League Central Division. We're looking at this on my stat page. 8-11 against the Cubs, 8-11 against the Reds, 9-10 against the Brewers, and 9-10 against the Cardinals. That's just not going to cut it for a World Series contender.
Last year you said a loss on opening day. This year we both say wins, and that starts us off with 1-0 records. We're going to get to our first off day. We're going to spend a minute 30 seconds on each off day topic. Did the Pirates do enough this offseason?
I think they did what they needed to do, and I feel like I've been saying those words for the past 3 off seasons. Just doing what they needed to do. But did they
really do what they needed to do, given that the Pirates did not really enhance their starting rotation? Neil Huntington will tell you they did, based on the John Neese signing, which we gave up Neil Walker for. Does John Neese justify an entire offseason of work?
He doesn't, but the trade was good based on it was inevitable that Walker was eventually going to leave. He has a history of back issues, and we got a very, very dependable career starter to replace him with multiple years of control. I feel like it was a solid move from Huntington's standpoint. I mean, does it justify an off-season of work? I do not think so. I mean, but we've had a lot of basically just patching the holes to the boat.
And I think it's right, and it's unfair to say that the Pirates were quiet. They got David Freese, Juan Nicasio,
who ended up being a starter.
Right, John Neese, Jason Rogers. Who else do we get?
You could throw in Vogelsong.
Vogelsong, yes. First base, John Jaso, Matt Joyce. And
I mean, the list goes on.
There's
and on.
More, right? It was not a quiet offseason by any means. Getting in, finishing out after that off day will be the series against the Cardinals. We want to take a look April 5th through 6th, games 2 and 3. We both say loss, win, and that would put us with a winning record over the Cardinals after one series of work. Anything to say about this series? It's an important series.
It's an important series. It's a division rivalry, but you can't really judge a season on the first series. But the only thing I can tell the Pirates is you cannot get swept in a series like this. No matter what, you can't get swept.
You say you can't judge them, but if they lose this series, people will judge them by saying, "Here we go again, slow start." So in April.
These first 6 games, you can't start 2-4 or something. You gotta keep even. Now, I keep saying this because there's really no excuse for these matchups for the Pirates not to come out about 4-2 after these games, but I do have them at.
The big complaint that we have talked about this season, or rather about last season, is the losing record specifically against the bottom teams, the Brewers and the Reds. We think they start off that trend with a good trend this year, 2-3. Or rather, 2-1 over the Reds in this series.
I believe, yeah. The Reds are going to be bad. The Reds are going to be really bad.
Really bad.
Unlike last year, they don't have Chapman to close us out. They don't have Cueto to shut us down.
The Chapman alone is just such a huge...
Yes, because
specifically for the Pirates, who were so bad against him, except for Jung Ho Kang.
Except for Jung Ho Kang. And Sean Rodriguez.
Yes. So that brings us to 4-2 on the season for both records. Pirates continue their season the 11th through the 14th, a 4-game series, but it's really 2-2 home-and-home series with Detroit. Mitch, talk to us about your predictions here.
I have a loss-win. It is very give or take for this series. You travel mid-series. That's the strangest part about this whole thing.
Exactly.
Play 2 games on the road that are day games and come back to Pittsburgh and play a night and a day game. It's going to be a challenge. I think you split it with the Tigers, who are an average team. A little, not as good as the Pirates, but an average team. So,
and am I correct in saying that Joakim Soria returned to Tigers, or did he go somewhere else?
He went to Toronto.
That's correct. Sure. That's right. The Pirates were 4-2 against Detroit last year. I also have them winning 2 out of the 4, so a series split. Then the Milwaukee Brewers come to PNC Park for games 11 through 13. By the way, up in the upper left there, you see both of us still with even records at 6-4. Mitch, you have the Pirates continuing off on the right foot against the bottom feeders of the National League Central, and honestly in the entire National League with 3 straight wins.
I do. And I think this is a trend that is beaten to the Pirates' heads at this point. I think they've spent all spring training getting the fact that they were just simply beaten by their foes in the National League Central. I think that's been beaten in their head all offseason. I think they're going to come out ready to play against those teams and have success early.
I have them winning 2 out of 3. I think beating these bottom feeders is important, but it wasn't just a coincidence that they lost so poorly last year to the Reds and to the Brewers. I think that they're going to have trouble coming out just firing off wins.
It's not always known how difficult it is to beat a division opponent when you play someone so often, when you're so used to someone else, and especially like a team like the Reds who hate the Pirates' guts. Yeah, they're going to come out ready to play for the Pirates.
The Reds are totally rebuilding. I mean, that's a mess.
But you have people like Votto and Brandon Phillips who will not take the Pirates lightly compared to the Phillies or the Brewers.
So that's the bottom feeders. Now for the people at the top. It's universally accepted by every analyst that I can tell that the Pirates, Cubs, and Cardinals will be in a 3-man race to win the National League Central. The Cubs are projected to win the National League Central by 26 of 32 ESPN analysts. 1 picked the Pirates. Thoughts on these 3 teams this whole season?
I believe the Cubs. Now, my ending prediction, end all, is I believe the Cubs. I don't want to spoil anything, but I think the Cubs are eventually going to come out on top in this division. And
that's where we differ, because I think the Cubs are vastly overrated, even more than they were last year. Jake Arrieta is going to be a bum who has a losing record at the All-Star break. That's one of my bold predictions right here. I think the Cubs truly are just... They claim to be riding this wave from last year, and I think it's ridiculous. And the Cardinals, I think they have no pressure on them for the first time in forever. People are talking about how poor the Pirates did this offseason and how great the Cubs did, and the Cardinals are just kind of in the middle. And I don't know that the Cardinals... I don't think the Cardinals finish in the top 2. Again, trying not to spoil anything, but you got to say it.
Well, I agree that I don't think Jake Arrieta is going to be nearly as good as he was last year. However, you cannot forget about some of the people still left on this Cubs roster. They have a very solid lineup from top to bottom.
Absolutely, they do, but I think they overperformed last year.
Jason Hayward was one of the top outfielders in the game last year. They still have John Lester, who was almost a full point above his career ERA last season with the Cubs. And he's still somewhat young. And they picked up veteran John Lackey
from the Cardinals, so he stays in the NL Central. All right, gotta move on. April 19th to the 21st, 3-game series in San Diego. These early season Western road trips, a lot of weight is put on them each year, I feel. And it's a fun part of the season because those are like the first games, the 10:30 first pitches,
baseball
the team's
season's
away,
here, yes.
Right.
Baseball season's here.
And we had memories, the McCutchen giving away his batting gloves in the outfield. That's an early Western road trip memory that stuck with the whole season. These are important games.
Takes place at 1 a.m.
Yeah. You have them going 2-1. I have them 1-2 against the Padres. We move on to Arizona, who got Zach Greinke.
Might have to deal with him once in this series. They also have...
But this is a launching pad of a ballpark.
It is. But an experienced pitcher knows how to pitch in that ballpark. Zach Greinke is truly one of the game's best.
So where you had the Pirates winning the series against the Padres and losing here against the Diamondbacks, I have them winning here against the Diamondbacks. And I believe I had them losing to the Padres.
You did.
So there we go. Flip-flop there. Arizona's going to be a good team.
They are going to be a good team. Now, are they going to make the playoffs? I don't think so. Or they'll come close. They'll give the Dodgers and Giants a run up into the beginning of September, but they're eventually going to fall off. You can't push that far with only 2 starters.
Last year, the Pirates were 5-1 against the Diamondbacks, but again, they're a different team. 4-game series in Colorado against Clint Hurdle's former club, the Rockies. Talk about a launching pad of a ballpark. I hope.
Definitely.
Jung-Ho Kang, do you think he's back this series? I want to see him just launch missiles in this series.
No, I do not think, because I believe Kang will reappear at the beginning of a home stand to get the crowd fired up. But
interesting.
Buccos were 6-1 against the Rockies last year. I think they easily win 3 or 4.
Okay, I'll say this then. If he returns this next home series, he's with the team this trip as a pinch hitter, waiting to be cleared for defensive play. That's what I'll say.
Very, very, very possible, but
you have him winning 3 out of 4. I have him splitting the series. Colorado, anything can happen.
Especially in that ballpark. If that's at PNC, you can call it a sweep or a win series anytime.
You have their record against Colorado last year?
6-1.
Then to wrap out April and enter May, a 3-game homestand with the Cincinnati Reds. Perhaps when Kang is back, if not sooner. You have him winning 2 out of 3. I have him sweeping. So again, as April ends, we'll take a look at our end of April records on the next slide. But a better start, would you say?
A much better start. Now let's see what we have.
Specifically against those bottom
coming
feeders.
into this team, I have 17-9. You have 16-10.
Significantly
better than we saw last year.
Yes.
They believe we were 10-12 or something at this point.
So you have them 8 over. I have them 6 over. Right.
Correct. Cubbies at home.
Yes, a big
Now,
series.
this will be a Jung-Ho Kang thriller here. Bucks are going to win this series off of Kang, and you got Kang only.
I think we're not going to have much time, if any time in this podcast, to talk about our Pirates time capsule. We encourage you to check that out on YinzYap.com. One of the questions in that time capsule was, how many ejections for Tony Watson this year? And I said 1, you said 0. I think that happens during this series, boil over from the wild card game.
Now, I truly believe what some analysts have been saying, that there is a high possibility of a brawl, of a scrap, of a hit-by-pitch storm occurring between these two teams. I definitely think that's going to occur. However, I think any pitcher on the Pirates has a possibility of being involved in that. Garrett Cole, Ariano, Melanson, who's proven he'll
do it. He'll do it. All right, that's that series. We go now to our third off day on May 5th. We commemorate the losses of YinzYap, Joe Blanton, Joakim Soria, most importantly, AJ Burnett, not worthy enough to make this slide, Charlie Morton. Across the board there, starting on the left, Joakim Soria. How big of a loss is it? He wasn't great here. He was hated by some fans, which I never understood.
Was absolutely hated here. However, he was a career... Throughout a whole season, I believe the outcome would have been different. He's a career closer, and...
Right, and he was brought in here not in a closing role, but you would think there'd be less pressure on him then.
Didn't work out that way, apparently.
YinzYap, right or wrong decision not to bring him back?
Right decision. I believe he's going to fold.
Especially knowing that money. See, I don't know that he folds. He's going to be on a great Toronto team, but for the contract he signed, the Pirates should be destroyed for giving him that much money.
In a very difficult ballpark to pitch in, keep in mind as well. I believe he's going to struggle up there. I don't think it's going to be too good of an experience for him, and I think the Blue Jays are going to massively regret that at the end of that deal.
Joe Blanton, we both were just so confused as to why no one was offering him, and he finally got brought somewhere. I don't even remember.
The Dodgers,
where.
I believe.
Yeah, I think he returned to L.A. Is that correct?
L.A., I believe it's L.A.
But that's Joe Blanton. I thought he could have been stretched to be a starter. Some people did not. And then lastly, a few words. AJ Burnett, 10 seconds.
His legacy in Pittsburgh was incredible. He went out the right way. I think there's not much to say about him. I mean...
Well, here's what we'll say to wrap up this slide. David Todd on Twitter, a Pirates analyst, asked the question today for the biggest bold predictions for a single player. And one of the replies I was reading through, one of the replies was, AJ Burnett has 5 wins. Thinking that he would come back to this team in the midst of a starting pitching crisis mid-season. I think it's absurd. I don't think.
I see it as possible, but
you entertain the idea.
Only if mass injuries occur. And who knows if he'll even be willing. He retired. He's with his kids. He's happy.
I did see on Friday Jeff Locke tweeting about Call of Duty, I think, with AJ Burnett. So there's still a connection there.
There is still
and
a
also,
connection.
AJ Burnett has never officially retired, as Aramis Ramirez did.
Very
May
interesting.
6th through 8th at the Cardinals. We both say loss, win-loss. I think we have trouble at Busch Stadium, but we probably go 500 there.
We do go 500 at Busch Stadium. Busch Stadium's not as intimidating, I think, as this year is going to be as Wrigley Field is for the Pirates. But I think Wrigley Field, I agreed with your statement a couple weeks ago, Wrigley Field will be an absolute
house of horrors.
House of horrors for Pittsburgh.
May 9th through 11th, this National League Central road trip continues into Cincinnati. Again, these are games the Pirates must win. They must win every single series against the Brewers and the Reds. And for every time they don't do that, I'm going to flip out. And I'm probably going to write an article saying the season's over.
You will. But
and I have them doing it here. So on
it.
May 11th, Game 35, expect me to say, if my prediction comes true, that the season's over.
And I don't see the Reds winning many series in general, quite frankly, this year.
I don't either, no. Here's the big one. The big topic, we got a minute 30 to discuss the legacy of Pedro Alvarez and Neil Walker. I was never a Neil Walker fan. I thought his defense was borderline bad. I thought he struck out looking so many times. If he struck out swinging, my theory in my head is, if he struck out swinging more, my negative opinions about Neil Walker would not exist. But how many times did we see Neil Walker strike out looking? If we could find that stat, I think he's top in the league.
I mean, he's the hometown kid, which made him special and actually reduced the amount of criticism he got throughout all his years here. And I especially think he was more responsible for the fact that he wasn't here his entire career as the Pirates, because I don't think he was exactly as negotiable as what people think. Alvarez, on the other hand, his legacy in Pittsburgh is always going to be the person that never developed and could never hit the long ball. But the thing about, could never, put it all together. He could never have a good defensive year, countered with a good offensive year, find his place on the diamond. I think he eventually turns into one of the greatest power hitters in the game, but I think that's a couple years down the road.
Pedro, for me, the fans loved him to the very end. There were loud cheers every single time he came to the plate.
They did, and I think it was solely based on the fact of the threat of the home run.
The threat. You knew it could happen, and I don't think that happens with John Jaso. I do think it happens with Mike Morse, however, who I think... My bold prediction, by the way, going back to that David Todd tweet, was that Michael Morse hits more home runs than anyone else in the Pirates roster. It's insanity, but
it's
I think
insanity,
and
it's not going to happen.
The road trip continues against the Cubs, games 36 through 38. You have them getting swept in Chicago. I'm almost there. I have them losing 2 out of 3. A house of horrors. It was Miller Park. Now I think it's Wrigley Field.
I agree completely. I think it's going to be a real tough place for the Pirates to play.
And if I had to guess, at some point during this series, after the Cubs likely win the series, Joe Madden will make an idiotic comment. May 16th through 19th. We'll talk about the hatred for Joe Madden a little later. 4-game series at home against the Atlanta Braves.
Should be fun.
God himself, Jason Grilli, will descend to PNC Park and make his... another return, likely to be booed, rightfully so.
Likely to be booed.
The man's mentally unstable. We both said win-win-loss, win. And
the Braves are bad.
They're bad.
Let's keep it very simple. The Braves are bad.
It all comes down from the fans going insane at that game, that playoff game.
It did, and it all ended there.
May 20th to the 22nd, the Pirates welcome Colorado Rockies to a ballpark with a lot lower altitude, a lot closer to sea level. The Rockies, I don't even know much about the Rockies, to be honest with you.
All I know is we were 6-1 against them last year. Their pitching rotation is horrid, and they lost their best hitter in Troy Tulowitzki to the Toronto Blue Jays. So I believe the Rockies are going to be a really, really bad baseball team this year, and I think the Pirates handle them quite easily. There's always that sprinkled loss in the middle there that you don't know what happens. Based on the Pirates, I have them obviously at taking 2 or 3. You do
we
as
both
well.
do, yeah. Moving on to our next off day on May 23rd, we're going to talk about Mark the Shark. We're going to throw out one of those Pirates time capsule talking points, and it was, will Mark Melancon break his 2015 saves record, which was a record for the entire club? We both said no. I think that record goes unbeatable for quite a long time.
I agree, and especially with pitchers becoming more and more limited on the amount of pitches, on the amount of innings. I think this was an absolutely incredible feat we saw last year out of Mark Melancon. I do not. I think he gets into the 40 range, but getting to, what was it, 52?
Ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
And remember,
amounts.
at the beginning of the season, we were worried about his effectiveness because his velocity was down. And Root Sports had a great graph at the end of the season. His velocity from spring training to the end of the season, and about midway through the season, he peaked and was steady the rest of the year. He is the best closer in the league. We didn't think he would be here.
We didn't.
We thought he would be traded away. He will not be back after next season. Agree or disagree?
He'll be gone. I agree. And unless he's willing to take a cut, which I don't think he will, because by the time this season's over, Tony Watson's going to be the man.
He will be one of the most coveted free agents if he has the same year this year he did last year in all of baseball.
He'll be an unbelievably highly touted free agent.
May 24th to the 26th, the Diamondbacks come to PNC Park, and let's see, we both have them winning 2 out of 3. Taking a look at those records up there, at this point, at the 46 game mark, you have them at 27 and 18. I have them at 25 and 20. Not a whole lot to say about this series.
Yeah.
I mean, Greinke, likely, the odds are he will pitch it in this series, but is it that big of a deal?
It's
you
May
hope
24th.
You hope in this series that there's a Cole Greinke matchup. That's all I can say.
That's true. You hope for something exciting like that to take place.
The Pirates then go to interleague play to take on their old bench coach,
Jeff Bannister.
I almost said Ray Searage. Jeff Bannister with the Texas Rangers. We both have them losing 2 out of 3. Does Clint Hurdle hug Jeff Bannister at some point during this series?
Yes, and it's an embrace. I believe those two were fantastically close. I don't even know if fantastically is a word, but
they were
very
definitely close. And the Rangers,
they're a good baseball team.
Run last year.
They're a good baseball team.
Very
Let's
good.
keep that
What
in
a
mind.
turnaround there.
With an
he
ace.
did to the Rangers what Clint Hurdle did with the Pirates.
And it was fun to watch. I mean, you can't hold anything
Pittsburgh
against Jeff
Bannister. Do you agree that Pittsburgh was rooting for Jeff Bannister and the Rangers?
Definitely.
May 30th to June 2nd, we're out of May and into June. The Miami Marlins. We go to Miami to take on the Marlins.
Those first 2 games are in Puerto Rico. Let's
very
keep that in
true.
mind.
That is very true. I was going to make a comment about that statue that they have in the outfield that twirls whenever there's a home run. But,
it is. The fish.
Yes, the fish. Those first 2 are in Puerto Rico. Good point. Those games, by the way, as a side note, are not currently scheduled to be televised. I assume that's going to be an ESPN deal. I would think. That's
ESPN,
a pretty big
MLB Network.
That's a pretty big series for all of
Fox.
baseball. Yeah. I think that'll be nationally televised, I think. That's a pretty big deal. To celebrate Roberto Clemente.
It is. It's a high achievement.
You have them splitting there. I think they sweep that series in Puerto Rico. I mean, Puerto Rico, the entire
globe.
All of Puerto Rico is in love with the Pirates because of
Clemente, correct.
June 3rd to the 5th, before we take a look at these games with the Angels, we want to look at our records. You're 2 games ahead of me at 32 and 23. I'm at 30 and 25. And that is after the month of May. June 3rd to the 5th, the Angels and... What's his name? The
Mike Scioscia.
No, Mike Trout.
Mike Trout. I thought you were talking about their manager.
Mike Trout comes
Anyway.
to PNC Park. We both have them losing 2 out of 3. The Angels are going to be a good team like they always are.
They always are a good team, and they're a unique team coming here. I think they're going to take 2 of 3 from us. Kind of like we took 2. No, I think we swept them in Anaheim a couple years back in 2013. But
the consensus prediction is that Trout is the NL West, my lord, the American League MVP. Do you agree with that?
I agree. He's a phenom. There's nothing else to say.
The Mets, Andrew Filipponi's home team, the Mets who made a run to the World Series,
who have Neil Walker coming to town. Keep in mind for that this
but
series.
they lost John Neese. Can they
John
possibly repeat without John Neese? Yes,
they will. Bartolo Colon has a 3/5 chance of pitching in this series. Keep that in mind. They're going to take 2 of 3.
This is Walker's
Neese starts
return
a game
to PNC Park. Correct? These are the games?
Yes.
He will get booed. That's a big deal.
He will. Yeah, just kidding.
If anything, there will be a negative Huntington chant during that series. There it is. The Pirates swept the Mets last year.
They did.
Do they do it again this year?
They do not. The Mets are too good and too experienced at this point to let that happen.
I have them losing 2 out of 3 to the Mets. I think this series turns a little ugly. You see, I have them barely over 500. I think after this series, they'll be with my record 32-29. They'll be 3 games over. Neil Walker will have just returned to PNC Park. 2 out of 3. I think the fans are upset with this series.
Fans will be very upset if we lose this series.
Ryan Vogelsong, our June 9th off day.
Now that was a bad year. You're seeing right there from Ryan Vogelsong. The red bandana to Bucko on the hat.
We're going to talk about Juan Nicasio later, but talk about Vogelsong. Does he ever break into this rotation?
Very tough question. You got to keep in mind for the first, I'd say 4 months, he's the next man up. Not 4, but call it at least 3 months. He's going to be the next man up. He's going to be the person called upon. Injury, any type of situation. Remember last year, Liriano had a child born in the Dominican, and he had to leave and go south to get him. I mean, it's a laughing matter, but it's what happens over a 6-month span, and you might have to see Ryan Vogelsong start a game or 2. Yes, I believe he will start for the Pirates with high unsuccess.
Ryan Vogelsong in the spring, a 6.14 ERA in 3 starts, 5 appearances, 14 innings pitched. He gave up 19 hits, 13 runs, 10 of them earned. Not good.
Not good, but he's a veteran. We'll see if he can figure it out.
Head to YinzYap.com. You can see the Pirates time capsule and our predictions for his ERA. June 10th to the 12th, the Cardinals are at PNC Park. This is when we're starting to get into serious baseball. You don't believe that the first 2 months count like I do. I think that they're all even. Is this an important series against the Cardinals?
There is more emphasis placed on the later games. So, yes, I believe this series will hold more emphasis and more ground than the opening series will. I think we'll win the series ultimately, do you.
We both say 2 out of 3. I think that the Pirates do very, very well against the Cardinals at PNC Park this year, and I think they go about 500 at Busch Stadium for a winning record against the Cardinals.
I agree.
All right, a minute 30. We just talked about Vogelsong. Now we're going to talk about Juan Nicasio. He breaks into the rotation. First off, do you like this decision by the Pirates? They went into spring training very clearly, I think, with a plan for Neese, Vogelsong, and Locke to join Liriano and Cole, and that isn't what happened. Do you agree with the Pirates that a pitcher can win their spot during spring training?
I do, but if it was such lopsided as it was in spring ball, if it wasn't so lopsided, I don't think the Pirates would have done it. But considering the fact that I don't think Nicasio allowed an earned run. Am I right on that?
I have his stats. He didn't allow a run, period.
He didn't allow a run, period.
Juan Nicasio, 15 innings pitched even. He gave up 10 hits in those 15 innings. 4 starts, 5 games played, no runs for a 0.00 ERA. If Juan Nicasio's ERA was not factored into the typical starters, The Pirates starting ERA is over 5 this spring. It's frightening. Tab Douglas on the Fan today was talking about his concern for the rotation. If Nicasio does not perform at the major league level like he did in the spring, we have problems right off the bat. Because your fallback is Ryan Vogelsong, who is now not stretched out because he's been pitching out of the pen. I think the Pirates, I like the decision, but I don't like the decision because the Pirates are now setting themselves up for literally failure. If Nicasio fails, you go to a Ryan Vogelsong who isn't stretched out.
But it's got to be a risk worth taking. I mean, the man did not allow
he could be
the
story in all of baseball.
He could be the story of all the baseball. He could be this year's Edinson Volquez, essentially.
He could, absolutely. The Ray Searage project continues. June 14th to the 16th, games 65 through 67 were at New York against the Mets. Again, the Pirates swept the Mets last year. We don't see that happening this year, losing 2 out of 3 to the Mets.
I believe, yeah, pretty simple.
We'll see Neil Walker there. June 17th to the 19th, we travel to Wrigley Field to face the Cubs. That's a pretty tough stretch of games there, taking on the Mets in New York, then going to Wrigley to take on the Cubs. And we're going to see us return them to take on the Giants in a second. We have them losing 2 out of 3 to the Cubs here, so now they've lost 2 series in a row, one against a non-division opponent. But here, a bad series against the Cubs and the House of Horrors. I couldn't remember the term. House of Horrors at Wrigley Field continues.
It does, and there's nothing else to say. I mean, it's going to be a tough place for the Pirates to play this year.
I think for the first time in many seasons, the story is the Pirates against the Cubs and not the Pirates against the Cardinals.
I agree. I completely agree. I believe that's the matchup within the division. And I think the Cardinals actually have the advantage of all this because they're going...
No pressure.
No
under
spotlight.
The radar.
No spotlight.
Then the Giants come for a 4-game series at PNC Park. I like when the Western teams come to PNC. They will almost certainly see... The starting pitcher, I can't even remember his name right now. The
Madison
Bumgarner, correct. So
Cueto's in that rotation.
Cueto, that's who I'm talking about. So the 2 wild card starters at PNC Park probably make an appearance in this series. This is a tall test for the Pirates, I think. An important 4-game series. And they cannot lose this series.
Keep in mind, Arrieta might pitch in the series before. They might see their last 3 wild card starters that have teed up against them in a span of a week.
This Western trend continues with the Dodgers coming in June 24th through the 27th. We both have them splitting this series as well. So splits against the Western teams. I would not mind a 500 record in 4-game series against the Dodgers and the Giants in the middle of the season.
No, it keeps your head above water.
Now we go all the way across the country to Seattle at the end of June to help wind out that month. We both have them splitting this series. Will Vinny Riccici be in attendance at these games?
I really hope.
I think almost certainly he will be. We go to our next off day, June 30th. We're talking Jeff Locke. Fun fact, this is the most used picture on YinzYap.com. We use this for more articles than any. We love talking Jeff Locke. I think it's a disgrace that he's in Pittsburgh. I think he's a horrible starting pitcher. My feelings for Jeff Locke are well known. With all that said, the Pirates give him another chance. What is this? His 19th chance to try to do something special. After, he had one special half a season and everyone lifts him up on a pedestal like he's the next Garrett Cole. And you know what, Redstone Rocket? I think you have a good year even though you shouldn't be here.
I kind of agree. Jeff Locke's just kind of one of those
Is he the most hated Pirate on the roster?
No, he's not.
I think John Neese comes in here with no one knowing him hated just because he replaced Neil Walker and he took Neil Walker's number. So I think fans are going to hate him for that. Vogelsong's
going to be
hated
and hated.
I think he's a classic. We're welcoming back people from the struggle days.
For some unknown, godforsaken reason, why we're inviting people back from the struggle days.
I don't think it's a question that Jeff Locke is the most hated. He takes the role of Joakim Soria.
He does. I mean, he's been here forever, it seems like.
Do you have anything to say about Jeff Locke?
I think he's going to have a good year. Under 4.
I do too.
Under 4 ERA.
Yeah. We both said that in the time capsule.
We did.
Then we go down the coast, the West Coast that is, to Oakland to take on the A's. Billy Beans, Oakland A's. They were bad last year. They weren't bad,
it just
but they
should be fun watching the Buccos at the Oakland Alavia County Coliseum.
Yeah. And you have them losing 2 out of 3. And when you made this prediction, I believe my words were, no way. I mean, I just have this image of the Pirates perhaps sweeping the Oakland A's. And when I initially did this, my picks, I did have them sweeping in Oakland. Had to change some numbers to get my record.
The Pirates haven't been in Oakland for at least the years we've been covering them. They've never made a trip out there to Oakland.
Before YinzYap, there was DMMS Sports. And I just remember one day you added an Oakland A's page to the website. And you said we were going to start covering the Oakland A's.
Very strange.
And I deleted the page.
You did delete the page. Those were the days.
But let's go back if we can. This is the beginning of July. So June is now concluded. We both are still over 500, but at the end of June, I am just 2 games over 500. You're 10 games over. Quick word about that. Anything to say about your record
I
at the
think
end of June?
we have a decent start to the season. The first 3 months are going to be... I think the Pirates... I know this is a very tough task to achieve in baseball because you get hot and you get cold at certain times, but I think the Pirates overall maintain a very solid, above-average pace to get to the very end. With all this madness with the division, I think that's what's going to keep the Pirates above water. They're going to maintain a very solid, professional image, and throughout the entire 6 months.
I think this team is going to get along very well. Andrew McCutcheon already saying that in quotes. I think that these Pirates get along like a family more than they have in the past, even though they certainly have been, even without A.J. Burnett in that clubhouse.
I do believe. I think they're more of a... I mean...
Fellow YinzYap writer Joe has been complaining that we didn't bring Mike Leake in. He's a clubhouse cancer, and I really think that played into the decision not to bring him here.
I do. And something maybe about his 5-year, $80 million thing that the Cardinals are going to be absolutely wanting to throw a brick through a window in 2020. He's not going to work out.
July 4th. I don't think so either. July 4th to the 7th. What name did I say the right pitcher's name? I feel like I said Leake for some reason.
Mike Leake. Mike Leake. You got the right one.
I'm not talking about Mike Leake. I'm talking about Matt Latos.
Where did he end up? Well, he's certainly not in St. Louis.
I don't even remember what I said.
Mike Leake
wasn't he the... Mike Leake is not a clubhouse cancer, is he? Well, Am I thinking of the wrong man?
No, you're right. Matt Latos is a...
Matt Latos is the guy who no one got along with. His wife was beat up here, wasn't she?
Okay, that was an accusation that was proven false. Let's just establish that. It was all just a hoax because he lost.
Yeah, it was Latos. I think I said Matt Latos.
You did say Matt Latos. He's currently in the White Sox organization, by the way, to make that clear. Mike Leake is with the Cardinals. He signed over from the Reds. What's making these few people...
Anyone whose name is Matt and has 1 T in it, it's just a bad guy. 4-game series against the Cardinals.
Prejudice.
We both have them splitting that series. It's at St. Louis. This goes along with our theme of a 500 record in St. Louis. Then the Pirates return home, continue division games. Here with the Cubs, you have them. We both have them actually losing 2 out of 3. It's going to be a tough year against the Cubs. And why is this series so important? Well, it leads into the All-Star break. Do you think the Pirates are setting themselves up for failure in the second half by sliding into the All-Star break with a 500 record against the Cardinals and then losing an important home series against the Cubs?
I don't. I think it actually, to be quite clear, it just kind of pisses them off for the second half. And I think that drives them to a decent record.
All right, so believe it or not, we're just over halfway, and we are way over time. So very quickly, we're giving this 15 seconds. Quickly, who from the Pirates makes the All-Star game? Besides McCutcheon.
McCutcheon will make it regardless if he hits 210.
Right.
Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole will make it.
I do not think Garrett Cole makes it.
I
think Liriano makes it.
Actually, I agree. I think both of those top 2 make it.
And
There's
Michael
always a
Morse.
surprise one.
Michael Morse will make the All-Star game again.
God's
His first time since 2011, I believe, after he leads the league in home runs in the first half.
I think we'll have 5 this year. Koch, the 2 pitchers.
You think Morse will have 5 home runs?
I think Morse hits 6. I think Morse hits actually.
Okay, take that number and multiply it by 4, and that's how many he's gonna hit.
I'll throw in Tony Watson over Mark Melancon.
Oh, that's a good pick.
And Jung Ho Gung absolutely goes on a tear.
Yes. July 15th through the 17th, we go to Washington for the Nationals. You have them losing 2 out of 3. I have them winning 2 out of 3. Some think the Nationals are going to be really good, a bounce-back year after a disappointing end last season. Others think they underperform, but I don't think they have as hard of a time beating the Mets this year. You?
The Nationals?
Yeah.
They're not going to be nearly as bad. They're going to come ready to play because, let's be honest, they have Dusty Baker at the helm.
We're moving on. How many times last season, when a certain pitcher took the mound, did I send this picture? Many.
A lot. And
you know who's behind this, right?
Oh, of course I do. Jared Hughes, who was one of the most productive.
I think he is horrible this season, and he was bad at the second half of last season. There's no other word for it. You don't think so? Joe doesn't think so. He was bad.
Let's understand the fact. He was misused. And this is one
misused.
Yes, what he should not be starting innings. That is very clear at this point. The man, check it. I'm sure there's a stat out there. The man's ERA.
Okay, well, maybe if the man didn't think he was running in a marathon from the bullpen to the mound, and he's so out of breath by the time he gets there, he can just lob these air balls over the plate. He was bad for a stretch of like 30 games last year.
I think Jared Hughes, I actually agree with you, the fact that he's going to have a down year, but it's hard to have a down year from, he's been a very solid pitcher over the past couple of years for us, whether you like it or not.
Tony Watson we're talking about Jared Hughes. He had a 2.28 ERA at the end of last season. He pitched in 76 games for 67 innings worth of baseball. He allowed 70 hits, 17 earned runs, 3 home runs, and he walked 20. That's Jared Hughes. All right, we're out of that off day and on to July 19th through the 21st, a 3-game homestand with the Brewers. I have them sweeping. You have them winning 2 out of 3. They're beating the bottom feeders. Speaking of bottom feeders, Charlie Morton comes to PNC Park July 22nd to the 24th. Will he be booed if he pitches in this series?
Absolutely not. He will not be booed. We both have him sweeping.
I think he is. I think we do. We're moving on. Oh, we flew past that. That was Caminero.
It was.
Is there anything we need to say about Caminero? I think he had not a bad year last year. He had a 3.62 ERA, 73 games. He pitched 74 innings, allowed 63 hits.
Apparently, he had a very bad spring.
He did. It's spring, though. He gave up 7 home runs last year. I'd like to see that number under 5 this year. July 26th to the 27th, games 100 and 101, the Seattle Mariners are at PNC Park, and Vinny Riccici is likely in attendance. We both have them splitting that, as we did in Seattle earlier in the season. These are just garbage games. You can't afford to lose these series, but you split them, you keep on track for your goal. Next off day, July 28th, we're talking Josh Harrison. He's your starting second baseman this year. Is there a problem with Josh Harrison coming back into a starting role this year after not doing it last season?
I think we're setting ourselves up for a little bit of a disappointment with Josh Harrison.
Because his last full season was so good.
I think he was in contention for the batting title.
Toward
the end of that.
He was.
And think of that, he was in the 310 range in terms of batting average. We should be happy if we get about 270 out of Harrison this year. That's more of what I think he'll add up to.
And
I think he's going to be solid defensively. Saying
we are at a home run deficit without Walker and Alvarez. I could care less. I couldn't care less about the number of home runs that the Pirates hit this year, as long as guys like John Jaso and Josh Harrison hit extra base hits and drive in runs. a run is a run, whether it comes from a ball hit out of the ballpark or within. And I think Josh Harrison scores a lot of RBIs this year, and he's an important guy in the lineup, that's for
Most
sure.
definitely.
To round out July, we go to Milwaukee to take on the Brewers. There you have it. You have them losing 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee. That's another, all right, if that happens, season's over article.
Yeah, the season's over article will occur. It's going to occur at many times this year. It always will.
And I'm always right when I write those. Our next off day would be on August 1st. We'll take a break right here and say that at the beginning of August, the Pirates' records we project both are 57 and 47, so 10 games over to begin August. Not too shabby. Jung Ho Kang, great season last year. Cut short by an injury we're going to talk about on our next off day. He's going
to be a straight-up great hitter for the Pirates this year.
Lots of home runs. I do worry about his defense just coming back from what was a catastrophic injury compared to a brutal car crash. He is going to have trouble, I think, adjusting a little bit, getting his footing down. But he's your everyday starting third baseman, right? And I don't see a Ramirez figure coming at the deadline.
No. If there's anybody coming at this deadline, it's going to be to help a worn down or very inexperienced pitching rotation.
I disagree. I don't think there's a starter coming in. I think maybe we get some more bullpen help at the deadline. But in terms of the infield, unless you're signing a star first baseman, I just don't see much of anything.
I think John Jason's going to work out.
Also, if Cervelli does go on the designated the disabled list as we projected on our Pirates time capsule, maybe a catcher at the deadline. Is Chris Stewart that good to carry a team for months on end?
I mean, let's keep in mind.
No more Tony Sanchez in the system, folks.
But
it's a big loss.
I mean, Michael McHenry's always available.
That is true. Very true. August 2nd to the 4th. The Atlanta Braves. I have a fun question for you after this series. But this is in Atlanta. We both have them winning 2 out of 3. Atlanta's bad.
Again, the Braves are bad, yes.
Here's the fun question. Does Travis Snyder, who was released by the Pirates in the offseason, he just wasn't signed, I believe. Does he return for a 3rd straight year?
He does.
I just don't see where... I hear everyone saying that. Like, it's a guarantee that Travis Snyder returns to the Major League Pirates team.
I think
where
he
does
gets
he
called
fit
up in
in?
September.
He's an outfield helper.
He is. A September call-up.
I don't even understand.
He gets 7 at-bats.
The Reds come to PNC. The Pirates win 2 out of 3.
You got to to continue this discussion, you got to keep in mind something about Travis Snyder. He started a wild card game in 2014.
It's a scary thought.
It is a scary thought.
All right, here they are. The 2 slides, the 2 injury-causing slides that were vicious. Some people, because they only care about big market teams, say that the slide on the left was fair game and the one on the right was not. Obviously, the one on the right in the Major League playoffs was far more emphasized and far more dirty. But, Mitch, are you in the camp that Chris Coughlin slide on Gung that ended his season was fair game?
I do not. I mean, I think let's just understand something. I believe if the manager for the Cubs wasn't an absolute moron with the comments he made after this, you wouldn't...
Jung Ho Kang didn't get hurt here, Mitch. He just had plantar fasciitis.
He just had plantar fasciitis. I don't even know what that is. No one knows what that is. I could not believe...
I think people know what that is. People don't understand how Joe Madden can be so stupid.
He's not
hated.
stupid. He's just sarcastic.
He's not
sarcastic. He thinks he's above the game. And
he
that
thinks
makes
he's
me
above
sick.
the game, but... So anyway, the point of that slide, there's a new rule that outlaws takeout slides at second base. I agree with it. Yes or no? Do you agree with it?
I agree with it to an extent. It helps protect players, and from a league standpoint, you're trying to keep your talent on the field at all times, so it makes sense.
And the only other rule change, the major rule change, a clock on mound visits, it's going to hurt the Pirates, I think. I think they get caught with it a couple times.
I do.
April
9th, what is the penalty for that?
I believe the umpire can call a ball as soon as the clock runs out, yeah.
Fair enough.
April 9th to the 11th, the Padres come to PNC. We both have them winning 2 out of 3. The 12th to the 14th, we go to Los Angeles to take on the Dodgers, and I have them getting swept. This is another Western road trip that I think is bad for the Pirates towards the end of the year. You see our records in the upper left there pretty close. Mitch 64 and 52. I'm at 63 and 53. We both have them losing this series to San Francisco.
San Francisco is a brutal place to play. It is going to be a difficult place.
An off day on August 18th. There's Gregory Polanco. He has to have a big step-up year.
I think he's going to have a big step-up year, but I think he's going to Marte is going to overshadow him because Marte is going to have an MVP caliber year.
I agree with that.
And that's one of the things I forgot to mention in my All-Star game. No matter what, Marte is going to make an appearance in that game.
I agree with that.
Because Marte is due for the big step up. A lot of people think he can basically be a second McCutchen this season, and I agree. He's going to be batting cleanup.
Right. Polanco, I think he also has to hit a lot more home runs early in the season. That'll help them get off to a better start. The 19th to the 21st of August, this is games 120 through 122, so we've got 40 games left to predict. Mitch has them, we both have them actually, winning 2 out of 3 against the Marlins. A lot of people think the Marlins are going to be good this year.
I don't.
I don't care.
Well, I don't know where it's coming from.
I don't care if they're good or bad. I just care that the Pirates win series against them. Those are games you got to win.
They are.
Houston Astros, a major turnaround last year. They were the shocker, I think, in all of baseball. 123 to 125 of the season. The Pirates win 2 out of 3 against the Astros. Mitch, we talk about every year on the Pirates Picks podcast how when we were younger, every game at PNC Park we went to seemed to be against Hunter Pence and the Astros. And I would love to go to this series because this is actually going to be a competitive series against 2 good teams. 10 years ago in these games I'm talking about, these
Remember
were
who
2
ignited the brawl
horrible teams.
2 terrible teams.
The 25th to the 28th. I don't know what that song is playing. August 25th to the 28th, Milwaukee Brewers, 4 games in Milwaukee. I have them winning 3 of 4. You have them splitting the series, and I would call that an unsuccessful trip if the Pirates just split in Milwaukee against the Brewers. It's hard to win 4-game series, I understand that, but when the Brewers are so bad, you really, really have to win. August 29th to the 31st, we round out the month of August with a 3-game trip to Wrigley Field to visit the Cubs. I have them losing 2 out of 3, keeping on my theme that Wrigley is a house of horrors. You have them winning 2 out of 3. This, at the end of August, Mitch, could be a pretty important series.
Oh, it's going to be a very important series and highly anticipated.
They're fighting for first place, first or second in the NL Central with that series.
Very.
We talked about Marte a lot already on the Polanco side. Anything you want to add?
I think he's an all-star. I think he's going to hit over 300. He's going to get over 30 steals. He's going to have over 30 home runs. It's going to be a career year.
And he will help write the narrative and prove the narrative that the Pirates have the best outfield in all of baseball.
Absolutely. And Polanco.
By the way, do you think, I'll say this, do you think that Marte at some point this season, with McCutchen in the lineup, starts a game at center field? A lot of people, the Pirates are so reliant on sabermetrics.
No.
So many sabermetricians say that Marte is the center fielder and McCutchen is the left fielder. Why don't the Pirates give it a shot?
Because
is it really that disrespectful to McCutchen?
It comes to a point where satisfying your superstar beats out sabermetrics.
Especially McCutchen should be a team player if he has a problem with it, and I don't think he has a problem with it. I just don't know why the Pirates don't try it. 3 games of PNC against the Brewers. I say you got a sweep. 2 out of 3 acceptable as well as we enter September. But these are important games. This is September. As Mitch will tell you, these games matter twice as much as the games in April, which I disagree with. But
they do.
These are important games. Then it's 3 games against the Cardinals. So 2 opposite ends of the spectrum, the Brewers and then the Cardinals. You have them winning 2 out of 3 against the Cardinals here, as do I. So you would have them...
I can't see the Pirates losing any series to the Cardinals at home this year.
I really don't either.
And we're dead even on our records at 77 and 61.
We're over time, so we continue to move quickly. This is actually a really important series because this is such a bad team.
You can't split. You can't split this
Which
series.
I have them doing. I think here's my reasoning why I have them split this series. I had them doing well against the Cardinals the series before, and then the Brewers the series before that. It's hard to have win streaks in baseball. There has to be down points, and I think this is one of them. I mean, the rotation just has to catch up to the Pirates at some point. During this series, this is prime Glasnow Tyone potential right here. 4 games against the Reds.
And you got to keep in mind the crazy surplus of prospects the Reds will be fielding on that field in mid-September.
That is true. September rolls along. Mid-September, these are important games, and the Pirates get a gift from God with 4 against the Phillies in Philadelphia. They could sweep this. That's how bad the Phillies are.
But it's difficult for a 4-game sweep on the road in September.
Yeah, definitely.
No, it's not going to happen. We're going to take 3 or 4.
16th through the 18th, games against the Reds continue.
2 out of 3.
2 out of 3. We'll take it. On the road in Cincinnati as the season winds down.
There will be about 7 people there.
Final off day, we talk about the man who matters most to the Pirates, Andrew McCutchen. I ask one important question first. Does McCutchen get a Josh Harrison type contract during the season?
It's not going to be Josh Harrison because whatever.
I don't mean money-wise. I'm talking time-wise.
Time-wise?
During this season, does McCutchen get an extension?
No. And it'll be in the offseason next season, and I think the Pirates are going to dish out an incredible amount because he is a person that
he wants to stay. He wants to stay, and the Pirates have to take advantage of that. Does McCutchen lead the Pirates in home runs?
He does not. That category will be led by Starling Marte. That is my opinion.
I think McCutchen is second to Mike Morse, and I'll keep that narrative going all season long. Be sure to stay tuned to YinzYap.com for the best Mike Morse coverage. He ain't going to AAA. But 20th to the 22nd, the season winds down. Another gift series against the Brewers. They have to win this series in Milwaukee.
They will.
September's winding down. Our records are almost equal, around the 86 and 66 mark. 3 games at home against Washington. Likely, both the Pirates and the Nationals are fighting for playoff positioning, if not a playoff spot, during this series.
Very, very true. And the Nationals might be winning their division. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen there between them and the Mets.
That's right.
I mean, it's very possible. I think we're going to win one. I think that's going to be a trap series for the Pirates. They're just going to kind of waltz away. I mean, I have no idea. I mean, it's not going to be a sweep either way. It's going to be a good series.
You have them losing it, I have them winning it. This is the most important series of the year, and it comes at a bad time. A 4-game series is the second-to-last series of the year at PNC Park against the Chicago Cubs.
All 4
if this was a 3-game series, I'd have a whole different opinion of it, but it is so hard to sweep a 4-game series in September, in the second-to-last series of the year. I think this series is trouble for the Pirates. I have them losing 3 out of 4. You have them splitting. Do you agree this is the most important series of this entire season?
I do agree, and I think the division's going to come down to this. And I think
agree.
I think the Pirates are going to be a couple games back coming into this and basically keep their head above water from. And
they wouldn't gain ground if they're behind the Cubs in this situation.
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't.
That's what makes this series so tough. If it really is, the Cubs are in first, the Pirates are in second, trying to catch them, and you have a 4-game series at the end of September. No one's gaining or losing any ground in this series.
No.
I think, you see me here, I have the Pirates losing a game, but history would tell us this will be a 2-2 split. Now the final series of the year that I don't think is the most important. I think the one before it is, but this is equally as important. The Pirates do not end their season at PNC. They end it in St. Louis because the Pirates opened the season here at PNC against St. Louis. You have them winning 2 out of 3, have them losing 2 out of 3. I think it's a very, very rough end of the season for the Pirates.
I don't.
You have them going out on a 2-game win streak.
I have them going on a 2-game win streak. And those 7 games at the end are going to be almost impossible to predict. We'll call it 10 games at the end. That national series is going to be brutal.
Yeah. That is a very tough 13 or rather a 10-game end of the season.
Then again, what's very true is the Cardinals and Cubs are probably thinking the same thing. But it's They don't want to see the Pirates the final week of the season.
Well, you can take that prediction on your screen, do some math with our records in the upper left, and you will get our 2016 final record predictions. Mitch, 92 and 70, a over 90 win season, successful by history standards, and I have them at 90 and 72, 2 games behind you, Mitch. Both of us have them at 90 or more wins. Is that realistic? Because what happened in 2013, they won more than 90, and then they regressed in 2014. They won 98 last year. History would tell us they're going to regress this year. I have them in an 8-game regression, but it's still over 90. It's 90 wins. Is this realistic?
It's very realistic, very realistic. There's still a lot of bad teams in the National League.
Here's what I'll say about these records. People say the Pirates are going to regress.
Who
did they lose other than Neil Walker and Pedro Alvarez? And I think Alvarez cost you as many runs as he gave you. Offense, defense. Walker did nothing.
He was solid.
The math disagrees with
his
me,
consistency. Now, he's one of those people I think was famous for. I would watch him on TV and I never saw him get a hit. Yep. But he somehow got them every game. I mean,
they're just not
keep in mind, regression. You're seeing regression on your screen right now. That's regression.
Still a great season.
You have an 8-game regression. I have a 6. That is an incredible season still, and especially in such a good division.
We take a look now at our NL Central predictions. I'll bring mine up as well, and we can take a look at this. I have the Pirates winning the NL Central. You have the Cubs winning. Talk about your order. Run through 1 through 5, but obviously the top 3 are the ones.
Here's basically how I see this playing out. The Cubs have such a built roster, and as much as it pains me to see it, they are, on paper, I think, with a vibe, they're better than the Pirates. But the Pirates will remain the consistent force and finish a couple games back and barely be out of it. They'll be hosting the NL wildcard game again. As sad as that is for me to say, they're going to be hosting
for the 4th straight year.
For the 4th straight year. The Cardinals at 88 and 74, I think they miss out on the playoffs. And I think that's saying something. I mean, they're such a good team. I think ultimately they will miss out on the playoffs because I think the second wild card will go to the Mets.
Here's what I will say. Yeah, I do not think that the NL Central will dominate both spots of the wild card game this year. One of these 3 teams makes it
to the wild card game. Overall in the playoffs, I think you see 2 of these teams make it. I think those teams are the Cubs and the Pirates, and the Cardinals are the odds man out. And to be very frank, the Cardinals are going to come down to the wire to get in.
You see, I have 2 games separating the Pirates and the Cubs, and then 2 games separating the Cubs and the Cardinals. Are you sure you don't want to change yours and put the Cubs in 4th place behind the Brewers? Any last-minute changes?
Any last-minute changes for you is what I should be asking you.
Now we're going to talk about the playoffs real quickly. We've already talked about them. There's only been 14 teams in MLB history to make the playoffs 4 years in a row. Are the Pirates the 15th team?
The Pirates are the 15th team. Now, let's make this clear. This is how I see this playing out for the postseason, basically. I'm basically going to go through an NL prediction here. I think the Pirates, I'm going back on my word. I think the Cardinals are going to make the second wild card. I think they're going to send 3 teams again. As crazy as that sounds.
So you're going to walk that back?
I'm going to walk that back. I think the Cardinals get in through a tiebreaker game. And then...
Wow.
Yeah, bold, but... I think the Cardinals get in as the second wild card, and we beat them here at PNC Park. And for the wild card game, we'll get in, we'll have the Cubs, and we'll beat them. The other 2 teams will be. I think the Mets win their division. I think the Nationals are vastly overrated, and I think at the end of the day, the Giants are going to win that division. The Giants are going to take on who would it be? The Mets. The Mets are going to win. It's going to be a Pirates Mets NLCS.
Wow.
And I think that goes 7 games, but the Buccos win it in New York. Neil Walker commits the game-losing error.
Oh, my.
He strikes out looking to end the game.
Yes, that's more like it. My prediction is the Pirates either win the division and make the playoffs, or they don't make the playoffs. I think if the Pirates will not be in the wild card game. they will either win the division and make it, or they don't. And so the final question that our colleague Joe has mentioned to me today, is Clint Hurdle on the hot seat after this season if he fails to make the playoffs? Because this would be another year of failing to go as far as the talent would say that you would, or does the talent within the Pirates division justify Clint Hurdle's club not making the playoffs?
No, he's not going to be on the hot seat regardless of what happens. I think he's one of those people...
Here's what Joe's thought, and I agreed with him. If the Pirates finish below 500 this year, there is serious talk in this town about replacing him.
Absolutely, but they're not going to finish below 500. They're not. It's not going to happen. Too many veterans, too much of it, and still so much to gain.
I believe, I may be wrong about this, but Bob Pompiani, who is a very big Pirate supporter, he's called for ridiculous win totals that haven't turned out to be so ridiculous. He gets a lot of flack for it, but I could be wrong. He's predicting a record below 500 this year, if not just a little bit over. And he cites the starting rotation as the problem. As in every year in the past 5 years, is the starting rotation the biggest worry from day 1 to day 162?
I think it is. But I think there are, unlike the last few years, there are people in the works that can come up late.
Tyone and Glasnow, barring injury, I think are here in September. And at least one of them,
if
possibly
Huntington, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him this year. If the deadline's lurking and we're in a position to make a run and we need a starter...
A big move. They can do it because their payroll isn't technically as high as the projections thought it would be. So there's wiggle room. And the people that argue about the payroll, get a life. Why are you counting the bills and
look at the roster on the field.
Look at the product on the field. Be satisfied with it. But the point is, if the Pirates are in a position to make a run, they have the money to get that big name, and I would be more disappointed than in years past that they did not take that step, because this is the last year with Mark Melancon. I think that is the biggest reason to go all in this year. But hey, there's just as much of a reason, because McCutchen's days could be coming to an end soon. You're losing a lot of that core talent.
Even if it's a 2-month rental. Even if it's a 2-month rental.
And that's why I was so disappointed with last season, because I truly thought last year is the best Pirates team we're ever going to see in our lifetime. And they didn't make it out of the wild card game because of a freak of nature pitcher for the Chicago Cubs.
Very true.
That and Garrett Cole fell
a lot
apart,
of people talk about the fact that if the Pirates got to a 5-game series or a 7-game series,
they would have beat them.
The havoc they could have wreaked. Even on the Cubs, they would have beat the Cubbies in 5.
Absolutely. Folks, that concludes our 2016 YinzYap Pirates Picks podcast. Thank you for listening all the way through to the end. We're just over an hour. It's a lot shorter than last year, but longer than we thought it would be. I want to thank you for listening. Our predictions in this podcast will be archived on the website all season long, and as we always do, we will revisit them at the end of the season to see who had the more accurate predictions, and we'll also be cracking open that time capsule on October 3rd. So, if you haven't done so yet, head to YinzYap.com. That's YinzYap.com. Check out our Pirates time capsule. Check out the rest of our Pirates coverage all season long. We will have a recap of all 162 games for the entire duration of the 2016 Pittsburgh Pirates season. We're also, of course, going to continue to keep you updated on the Penguins run, and we'll have Steelers coverage as we get closer to the fall and with training camp at St. Vincent. You can follow us on Twitter at YinzYap, and again, our home webpage is YinzYap.com. Thanks for listening. For Mitch, I'm Dakota, and also for Joe, thanks for listening to our 2016 edition of Pirates Picks. We will be back either with a weekly podcast this summer or in a year with Pirates Picks 2017, hopefully with a Pirates World Series championship under our belts. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, right.